And Lent, but we gave up things for Lent, things that were crappy for us. Like we gave up candy or, I don't know, ice cream or something. Like it wasn't that always the choice. When you gave up something for Lent, it was something that was like, I know this is bad for me anyway, I'm just going to give up on that. And so not really getting the idea that the sacrifice of, Hershey bars isn't quite the same as, like giving up on something that's separating you from God. Because Hershey bars, even though they weren't good for my body, weren't necessarily keeping me away from God, but there's things that keep us away from God. And so when I think about Lent, I think, boy, is it really just a Catholic thing, Lent? It's one of the oldest observations on the Christian calendar. It's changed over the years, but its purpose has always been the same. Self-examination, penitence, demonstrated by self-denial, and in preparation for Easter. The early church father Irenaeus of Lyon wrote of such a season in the earliest days of the church as early as 130 to 200 AD. In 325, at the Council of Nicaea, they discussed a 40-day Lenten season of fasting, and then they had like a Gregory the Great started this thing where we started off with Ash Wednesday, and they move it around so that it would start 40 days, not including Sundays, before Easter that year. And Easter, of course, was set up by the place of the sun over Jerusalem or something. There's all this like way that they figured out when Easter was, and that's how they figured out when Ash Wednesday was. And so we figured that all out. But the ancient observation, sorry, I have a little thing. Oh, it's right here. The ancient observation of Lent, like so many other mysterious traditions and rituals of the church, has its motivation in the right place. This idea that we observe Lent, there's nothing wrong with that. And when expressed and experienced in fully understanding, it can be a wholly beautiful marker towards the sacred relationship we have with the Creator God. Sometimes I write these things and I think through them, but there's a lot of words right here. The ancient observation of Lent, meaning the thing that we've been, since 100 as a church, we've been observing this Lent thing. And so, it's an okay as a mysterious tradition and a ritual. Again, rituals are okay, as long as the motivation, right, that we expressed and experienced fully and understand, like, why are we doing this? What does Lent even mean? What do the ashes of Ash Wednesday even mean? Because sometimes, if we do something over and over and over again, if we pass it down from generation to generation to generation, we make the thing the sacred. We make the ashes the sacred. Yesterday, I just ordered, because I'm at this weird crossroads with this whole thing. I do not want any more pizza. Yesterday, I ordered little palm crosses. Because I remember growing up in the Catholic Church and kept Palm Sunday, you'd hand out palms, and you're like, this is the best thing ever, because there's something to play with in church. There's nothing sacred about a palm. In fact, I don't even think the palms that we get at Palm Sunday are the kind of palms that they would have done. I feel like they had whole bushes of palm. Like they would have done this, you know what I mean, and laid them out. They wouldn't have been like one strip. There's nothing sacred about the palm. But I want to remember Palm Sunday. So I ordered us 100 of these little handmade crosses made out of palm. To remember or to acknowledge the fact that this is a marker of our faith, not a thing of our faith, not a focused point, not a focal point of our faith. We can't just keep doing things over and over, generation to generation, and then forget the meaning to it. We do that sometimes. We do it where we lose our grasp on the meaning and the purpose of a thing and focus only on the performance. So where holy, beautiful markers can become regarded as holy, sacred performances. Oh, you didn't make it this Palm Sunday? Well, you're going straight to hell. You had fish on Friday or meat? You're going straight to hell. Like the beauty of it was a thing. The idea of it, there's nothing wrong with the idea of it. Like, let's just not have meat on Fridays. In fact, let's just not have meat all of Lent. Right? Like, we're meat at that time, because it was a really special treat. Meat was a big deal, like red meat. And so, if you say, hey, let's just give that up for Lent. Let's give up that sort of luxury for Lent. It's a beautiful thought. But all of a sudden, it became a rule. And then you're just following the rule. The rule became the sacred. And if I understand it right, this was Jesus' problem with the Pharisees. You're making the law, you're making the rule the sacred. Jesus said, the Sabbath was made for you. You weren't made for the Sabbath. The rule isn't the thing. The rule just helps you stay focused on it. But we get all caught up in these rules and we make the rule the sacred. Again, there's nothing wrong with the rules if they're held in full understanding and full meaning. Like, they're beautiful, in fact. Last week, after we got done here, I had a job where I had to go take pictures at, I had to go shoot pictures at the cathedral. It's the time of year when, like, adults who want to become Catholic spend the last, 6 or 9 months going through the catechism. And then on one Sunday, they get to say, okay, you're officially Catholic and now you can partake in Easter, right? It's this beautiful thing. And I have to tell you, on Sunday, 4 of our friends encountered Christ for the first time. And it's a big deal in our faith. It's a big deal in how we understand things. We talk about how all of heaven stands up, right? And like cheers the fact that one sinner turned from his sin and came to the glory of God. Like, oh, they're like, woo, they're high five, and it's like this thing. But because we get caught up in the traditions and the rituals of church, I was looking around this room where all these like hundreds of adults are giving their life to Christ vis-a-vis the church, right? Like they're becoming members of the church. And so it was like very solemn, everyone was like, and like, I'm trying to take nice pictures. I'm not, please don't hear me make fun of them, because that's not at all, but that would be the position you would take, right? It's like the bishop's there, he's got his headgear on, right? He's got his big thing. Like, I gotta be smiling right now, it's in my church. And so I just think about it, and I think, I don't want the laws or the rules to become the sacred. That moment was such a beautiful moment where if that's how they see their path to Christ is through the church, cool. Like, I love that, man. If that's your path, do that path. But this should be the best day of your life right now. And so I want, when I think about Lent, I love the idea of Lent. I love the idea of, working through it. And so we're going to talk just a little bit real quick, even before my message, in this introduction on Lent. Because I'm all over the place right now. Let me just get back to my notes because I love my words. You ever write down words and you're like, oh, I love those, I got to make sure I get those out? Joe does. I do a podcast with Joe. It's a 10-minute podcast. He's got 30 minutes worth of script that he tries to get into that 10 minutes worth of podcast, and it's beautiful. Because, I feel like these words are... For me, I worry that I could get so caught up in the minutiae of what a holy life looks like that I forget to live an authentically holy life. If I'm worried about making it to service, if I'm worried about, jumping through all the hoops, if I'm worried about making all the rituals, if I'm worried about making all the traditions, if I'm worried about making sure that I'm seen, I forget about the holy life that this stuff is supposed to represent. I worry that I can fall in love with the traditions and the decorations and the entertainment and think that I'm walking the way because I'm wearing the right thing or reciting the right thing or doing the right thing with all the right people. That's not what makes it right. We talk about this all the time. This is not your faith, y'all. This is not the culmination of where this happens. Out there is where that happens. On the giving tree is where that happens. Right? With your neighbors, with your coworker. That's where that happens. This is just us encouraging each other. This is just us, worshiping together. This is just, hey, this is what's going on with me. This is, recharge time. This isn't sanctification time. You're no better for being here than if you'd just gone to the pancake place. If you're not invested in the walk, if you're not invested in what we're doing, if you're not investing in what we're about, go to Pancake Place, man. It makes me think of the Waffle House. I really want some Waffle House right now. I don't even get the waffles. Did I tell you that? I just get the hash browns. Double cover, double cap. That means the American cheese with mushrooms, side of bacon, a large Diet Coke. Come on, somebody. Amen. And then when you're done, they let you take another Diet Coke for free to take home. What? Come on. Waffle House. Anyway, so maybe we should stay away from ancient rituals and the church calendars, yeah? But let's, like I said, not throw the baby out with the bathwater. There's a rhythm to the church calendar. We observe many of them in our Catholic, Lutheran, and Lutheran Anglican friends. We watch the same things. I think of the two big ones, Christmas and Easter. Those are calendar events. There's a whole population of Christians for whom those dates of the calendar represent the entirety of their faith, right? The Creasters, that's their faith. Thank God for Christmas and Easter in the calendar, because then they would never come to church. So, what are the benefits of observing Lent? If it's not too late, because I know we're late in this message, we're already a week practically into Lent. We just got pushed back a week. Anyway, number one, Lent affords us the opportunity to search the depths of our sin and experience the heights of God's love. Our individual and corporate brokenness is on display as the Lord of glory dies under the weight of our just judgment. So we're going through Lent, we're leading Lent up to Good Friday and Easter, right? And so Lent gives us a chance to take a step back and look at that. Who am I compared to who he is? And so, what have I done that disappoints God? What have I done that distances myself from God? I'm not talking about rules or laws or anything else. Like, forget that for a second. Forget what Bible teachers tell you what sin is. I'm telling you, if it keeps you away from God, it's a problem. Even if it's not in the Ten Commandments, even if it's not in Paul's letters. If it keeps you from God, it's a problem. And so those sins, what are those things that are doing that cost him his life? God's grace liberates us to explore our soul, facing its filth, rather than suppressing or succumbing to its contents. It's like in Psalms with David, we are free to pray this. God, see what is in my heart. Know what is there. Test me. Know what I'm thinking. See if there's anything in my life you don't like, and help me live in the way that is always right. I love this prayer for all of us. Because I'm not saying, lead me to a church that tells me what's right and what's wrong. Lead me to a book that tells me what's right and what's wrong. David's prayer is like, God, read my heart. Tell me what's keeping me from you. Tell me what's distancing myself from you. Because it's different for me than it is for you. I want my laws to be your laws. I want my sins to be you know what I'm saying? Like the things I live about, I want them to be, like, because then I can know what you're up to, right? If I know what my sins are, I can look at you and say, Trish is not doing this thing. But the way that I understand my faith is that the Spirit's what convicts me.
That's right.
So this is the prayer for that. Spirit, tell me what's distancing me from God. And Lent gives us a chance to explore that. Number 2. Lent affords us an opportunity to probe the sincerity of our discipleship. You know, being a disciple of Christ is no easy task, and he told us that it wouldn't be. Even the first disciples thought that it was a position of glory, a position of power, a position of promise. And really, it's a position of forsaking yourself. Time and time again, every time they ask, Jesus, who's your favorite one of us? Who's going to sit next to you in heaven? Who's going to be the... I got a little Cosby there at the end, sorry. I don't know why I looked at Chris for that. You know why.
Your black card again.
I got the card, man. I'll show it to you. I was speaking in tongues. Anyway. We don't realize that the more that we give up to be a disciple, the deeper of a disciple that we are. And so Lent gives us that chance. It says this in Matthew 8. It says, Jesus saw the crowd around him, so he gave his disciples orders to go to the other side of the Sea of Galilee. Then a teacher of the law came to him and he said, Teacher, I will follow you no matter where you go. Jesus replied, Foxes have dens, birds have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head. And then another follower said to her, Lord, let me first go and bury my father. And Jesus told him, Follow me. Let the dead bury their dead. Receiving selfish ambition, Jesus reminds the scribe that following him is not a means of advancing in the world. Being a disciple of Christ doesn't get us anywhere. Not here, for sure. Like we don't gain reputation. We don't gain position by being a disciple of Christ. Jesus leaves us with the question, will we follow him when it's inconvenient? When it's uncomfortable to our advantage? Then will we follow him? That's the sacrifice that he's talking about. Then there was another disciple that came and requested, when he asked to go to his father's funeral. And Jesus goes on to say this. He said, anyone who loves their father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. Anyone who loves their sons or daughters more than me is not worthy of me. Whoever does not pick up their cross and follow me is not worthy of me. Amen. Jesus takes this opportunity to reveal the disciples' hearts, unveiling his ultimate affections. Obviously, Jesus doesn't say you can't love your mom and dad. You can't love your kids. That's not what he's saying here. But if you put anything before me, you're not worthy of me. If you put your job before me, you're not worthy of me. If you put your position ahead of me, then you're not worthy of me. If you put your boat ahead of me, you're not worthy of my cottage, whatever it is. Anything that comes before me, if there's anything before me, including someone so close as your mom or your dad or your kids, you're not worthy of me. Everything as a disciple needs to get filtered through that. And Lent gives us a chance to think through that. Number 3. Lent provides us an opportunity to reflect on our own mortality. Remember that one time I had that shirt? I love that shirt. I was hoping maybe that would be one of the shirts that we made.
Next time.
Okay. There's a saying in Latin that says memento mori. And it means remember your death. And mine had this really cool skull. Remember, it's like a crown, he's like marching. I love that. Because, newsflash, we're all going to die.
What?
Yep. That's probably shocking to you because you look incredibly young for your age. I don't know if that was an insult or not. I didn't mean it to be. But happy 85th birthday. Just kidding.
In about 20 years.
Ignoring death does not erase its impartiality. Everyone who draws a first breath will take a last one. What are you doing with it? Sometimes people talk about that on our tombstones. It's the year we were born and the year we die. What are you doing with the hyphen? The dash. That's memento mori. Remember your death. It says this in Psalm 39:6. People are only shadows as they go here and there. They rush around, but it doesn't mean anything. They pile up wealth, but they don't know who will finally get it because they can't take it with them. Furthermore, in Hebrews, it says this. It says, inasmuch as it is appointed for men to die once, and after that comes judgment. That's it. This is all we got. What are you doing with it? What are you collecting? What are you running around for? Death is not the last word. For all who belong to Christ, there's a promise stronger than death. Because while we will die, Jesus will return to raise our bodies, wiping the tears from our eyes and making all things new. Amen?
Yes.
Lent provides an unmistakable opportunity for disciplined reflection on this neglected certainty in God's radical solution, life forever with Him. Number 4, Lent gives us the opportunity to move towards our neighbor in charity. We look at this word charity, and I think about, I don't mean to keep picking on Joe, but we grew up the same. We went to the same church, we went to the same school. He's actually older than me, if you can believe it. I can't even believe it, because, look at him, he's beautiful. I'm all saggy and gross. I put my hands on Joe this morning to welcome him. I'm like, what? How are you rock hard right now, bro? What is? Did you do push-ups before you came in? You're like all swole. I'm gonna go to church. Raise my hand in prayer. Sorry, Joe. Anyway, I remember charity in church seemed like it was just something that the Franciscan priests did. Like they had this vow of poverty and celibacy and some other things. And it was just like, it was like a cliche. But if you look at the Bible and Jesus' teachings, it had a lot more to do with being charitable than it ever did about being religious. Every time you asked Jesus about something, he said, well, what are you doing for somebody else? He didn't say, what are you doing according to the law? He lived by the law, don't mishear me. But that's a foregone conclusion. He said that people are going to know who you are, not by your religiosity, but by your love for one another. We need to be more charitable. You're not giving enough, even if you're giving everything. It doesn't matter what you have. It doesn't matter what you die with. It doesn't matter. It matters what you give. I'm not saying that, I could never be a Franciscan priest. I look horrible in brown.
But you're rocking the orange.
I am rocking the orange today. And it matches my watch. Did you guys notice that? It's like orange and navy blue. And my chucks are white, but I feel like that kind of matches. Anyway, I look horrible in brown. I can never live that way, but I better live that way the best that I can. Like we talked about, if I see someone in need, I better make sure that I'm helping address that need somehow. Because once I've been there to wear that need becomes my need. Number 5, Lent prepares us to celebrate the wonder of promise of Jesus' resurrection on Easter Sunday. I love Easter. I like it Christmas, right? Because of the trees and the candles and the gifts and the songs. But Easter, man, that's everything. It says this in Hebrews. Therefore, since these his children share in flesh and blood, the physical nature of mankind. He himself, in a similar manner, also shared in the same physical nature, but without sin, so that through experiencing death, he might make powerless, meaning ineffective and impotent, him who had the power of death, that is the devil, and that he might free all those who through the haunting fear of death, come on somebody, were held in slavery throughout their lives. My greatest sin is the fact that I don't trust God. Yesterday, I shouldn't have put wheels on this because now this is all I do. I just like play with this wheel the whole time. It is like a fidget spinner. My greatest sin is that I don't trust God. I believe God. I believe in Jesus Christ. I believe that Jesus Christ is part of the Trinity. I believe that Jesus Christ died and rose again. I believe all of it. But I know I don't trust God to take care of me. I think that it's my problem. Yesterday, I couldn't shake it. I had this thing in my chest. You ever get that feeling when you were a kid, you would get into trouble and you have that dread when your dad's going to get home or something? You know that dread you feel? It was here. And it was like, and at first I thought it was because I had a photo shoot, like I had an engagement session that I didn't really feel like doing. I thought maybe it was that, like that maybe that was a dread, but even after I did it, that wasn't it. And then I thought maybe it was a letter I was going to get in the mail, because I get that thing, the email. Do you know you get email that tells you what mail's coming that day? I love that. Sign up for that, because that's amazing. You know what mail's coming, but there's this letter, I didn't know what it was. From a guy, I was like, oh my gosh, that guy could be mad at me. So then I thought maybe the dread was that, but it wasn't that either. And like it feels like a cannonball. Like, so I wrote my brother, I said, I feel this dread that I just can't shake. Because I'm worried about something. I'm so addicted to worry that I can't stop worrying. You know what I mean? You worry about it. That I gotta worry, something's coming. Like I do that. And that's a sin against God. That's not listed in the Ten Commandments, you guys. Worry is not listed in the Ten Commandments, but how many times in the Bible does it say, don't worry?
365.
365 times, by some accounts for sure.
One for every day.
So when I think about this sin that I got against God and his resurrection and what that means for me, that's the sin I'm talking about being free from. That's the haunting that I'm talking about. Now, I don't know what your sin is. Maybe you have an addiction problem. Maybe you've got like a pride problem or a jealousy problem. They're all the same root. It's all of us putting ourselves above anything else. Every one of the sins is us putting us before somebody else. My worry is putting me in front of God. I got to worry about it because I don't trust God to take care of it. Your addiction is I got to do this because I don't trust God to bring me joy. I don't trust God to make me whole. I don't trust God to make me full. What did we say this morning? We said the immeasurable fullness of God is in every moment. And I don't trust God for that. But when I think about his resurrection, I think about a life without that. And I think about his promise that if I could just turn it over to him, I'll get a taste of it here. And I don't trust him to do it. So these are the 5 reasons why maybe we should observe Lent. So let's do Lent together. Over the next few weeks, we'll talk about ways that we can do Lent. Sacrificing and prayer and kindness and love. Let's take up the opportunity to dwell upon the grief of our broken world, the sin within our hearts, and the deep love of God that exceeds these realities, reflecting, I love this, on the hospitality of God by considering the needs of our neighbors, especially those without the basic needs. And most importantly, the gritty details of Lent, because don't forget that Easter's coming. So, after the longest message introduction in the long history of the church, let me just tell you about my sermon. I just want to talk a little bit about a little more prayer. This won't take long. I just want to share some information with you. This is super private. Don't tell anybody, especially don't tell my wife. This is my screen time from the day before yesterday. So last week's average of screen time was 7 hours and 20 minutes in front of my phone. 7 hours and 20 minutes. Over that week, 29 hours spent on social. 3 hours spent on utilities. 3 hours spent on productivity and finance. Messages, 13 hours with Messages app open. I'm not proud of this. I'm not playing the things that people Wordle. I just know that I spend more than 7 hours on my phone every day. More than 7 hours. Nearly 2 hours a day texting. Nearly 1.5 hours a day on the Facebook. More than a half hour every day on the Twitter. I'm a big deal on Twitter, by the way. John Cena, he follows me. You wouldn't know it though, because you can't see me. David Crowder follows me. I love David Crowder. You know who else follows me, Trish? Barack Hussein Obama. I'm a big deal. Anyway, I spend a half hour every day on Twitter. Now listen, so much of my work, my photography, my marketing, my ministry is done digitally and online, so I feel like these numbers are a little bit skewed. And yet, 7 hours of my day on the phone. What if I spent a tithe of that on my knees? I didn't, you guys. I didn't spend a tithe of 7 hours on my knees last week. I certainly didn't tithe on all the minutes God gave me, because the tithe of all your minutes would mean that you would spend 144 minutes a day on your knees. If you said, I'm going to give you God a tithe of my time in prayer and communion and communication with you, that would be 144 minutes a day. I didn't spend that.
Have you been injured in a car accident?
I have.
That's it.
I have. The truth is that my prayer life is a car wreck. It's true. I don't pray as often as I should. I pray frequently in sprints, but never sustained. I'm not praying the 10,000 meters, right? I'm like a 100 meter dash guy. That's how I pray. And God gets that about me. I know He does. I know that He understands that. And I know that He hears me, even in my sprints. Jeremiah says this, then you will call upon me and come and pray to me, and I will listen to you. You will seek me and find me when you search for me with all your heart. Even in my 100 meter dash, I can find God in my prayer. I need to strive to be a 10,000 meter guy. But like I was just telling my friends, like I've got zero discipline. Jonathan and Messi, not Messi is a soccer player. Missy, I was this close. John? Not Jonathan. Everyone say hi to John and Missy.
Hi, John and Missy.
Hi, Jonathan, or John, or whatever.
I was telling them about how lousily disciplined I am. I have zero discipline. Zero. But I can pray better, and God gets that about me. That I seek Him with all my heart. Future and hope. And isn't it the root of every practical, like every prayer that we've got? A future and a hope. Make my future better. Give my hope more weight. That's what we pray for. Jeremiah here writes down the promises of God to the Israelites who were in Babylonian exile. That's who Jeremiah is talking to. And this helped define the future and the hope that God had for His exiled people. Though they were not where they wanted to be, not where they were comfortable, at home and thriving, God would still listen when they prayed. Their prayer and God's answer were part of their future and hope. And sometimes I feel like we're in exile. We're uncomfortable. We're not where we want to be. And we feel like God's not hearing us. I got the crappy job. I'm in this crappy relationship. My wife, she. My husband, he. My friends, they. My boss, him. Right? We're always in this place of exile, of wilderness. We think that God's not hearing us because we're still in the stupid wilderness. God would not hide from His people when they saw Him. They would not suffer under the dark sense that God would not be found. Their seeking and God's revealing were part of their future and hope. If they could just open their eyes and see it. But we're looking and we're praying, we're hoping, we're asking for a future by our definition. Or what we think we want, what we think we're entitled to, what we think we deserve. If God loved me, I'd have this. That's not bending your heart to God's will. That's not searching His heart. That's like, I don't know, making a wish list for God. I think of Lent a lot like the Babylonian exile for the Israelites. Life is a lot like the Babylonian exiles. When we're in exile, when we're in the wilderness, we don't really need to be reminded of our pain. I don't need someone to tell me how crappy it is. It's all around us. We're thinking about what we're missing every minute of every day. And maybe that's the benefit of Lent. Maybe by sacrificing and abstaining and giving and praying, we're always aware of our pain and our discomfort. When we should use those opportunities to pray a little more this Lent. Embrace where you're at in the wilderness. Embrace where you're at in exile. And pray a little more. A couple of months ago, we did a series on prayer. We talked about the benefit of finding often occurring everyday moments to use as a trigger to get us to pray. When we're at a stop sign, maybe that's the time where you pray for peace. Why can't you go, you stupid old man in a Buick? Fred, do you drive a Buick?
No.
Okay. But maybe at every stop sign, I pray for peace. Every time. For the rest of Lent, I get to a stop sign and praying for peace. Maybe when it's time for me to make a coffee run, which for some of you is too often. But maybe every time I go on a coffee run, I'm going to pray in Thanksgiving. Thanks for giving me Starbucks or Coffee Wizards or wherever you go. Maybe every time you feed and water the dogs, you're going to pray about God's provision. How your dogs live under the blessing of the fact that you just dig out some food and some water and they've got provision. Maybe you should pray in Thanksgiving for provision every time you feed or water your pets. You get the idea. I think I've shared this before on my keys. I've got these tiny saints, and they're like a rosary to me. Now again, I'm not worshiping these tiny saints. I don't think that Saint Nicholas is going to intervene on my behalf with God and Jesus Christ to make sure that I'm saved. But when I find myself waiting for someone or something, I'll look at my little friends and be reminded to pray. For each one, I ask God for a little something. Like Thomas Merton. He's not a saint, but he's really fantastic. When I grab Thomas Merton, I pray to be more introspective about my faith, my interaction with others, and my interaction with myself, to look deeper into myself. Then there's Solanus Cady. He was like from Fond du Lac or someplace, Two Rivers, someplace like that. Anyway, I pray to be present where God has planted me and make a difference for the people within my arm's reach. St. Thomas More, to be steadfast in what I believe, not the stuff I have opinions about, but the things I have absolutely confidence in the truth of. Jesus Christ, His grace, and His word, and I will stay steadfast in that. St. Dismas, that I won't complicate my faith and make my relationship with God by overthinking or overdoing my religion. St. Christopher, to always be prepared to protect and serve the people that God puts in my path. St. Oscar Romero, to never bow down or give in to the power of evil or the ways of the world. St. Nicholas, to find a way, no matter what, to be kind and loving and charitable to all of God's children. You don't need to get little saints to do that, although I love them. You don't need to have little saints to do that. How can you remind yourself to pray a little more this Lent? What happens in your life every day that you can say, you know what? I'm going to take these everyday things. Maybe it's brushing your teeth. Like, what else are you doing while you're doing this? Does anyone multitask while you brush? Do you walk around while brushing your teeth? It seems like such a weird thing, because I make such a foamy mess. I couldn't possibly walk around. It was like dripping through my beard. And anyway. Right, see? I've noticed that, Sandy. I meant to tell you. I'm just kidding, I never did. Anyway, how can you remind yourself to pray a little more? What triggers or reminders can you flag and say, when this happens, I'm going to pray a little bit more? How can you make a little more prayer your sacrifice this Lent? Okay, that's that. So we've got some questions that we've got prepared for you. We're going to take 15 minutes to talk these things through. If you're at a small table, join a bigger table if you want a bigger discussion, or just stay at your 3 tables. You can use these as conversation points, or if you're like, hey, Megan, before we even get started, someone tell me more about this. If you've got questions about faith, about Jesus, about the Bible, about church, ask them at your table and say, someone paint a better picture of this for me, because I don't understand. This is what UnChurch is all about, this thing that happens for the next 15 minutes. So do that, then we'll come up and close. Oh, we're going to have communion, and then we'll close.
That's what I thought too. You need a mini chocolate.
What did you give up for lunch?
He's coming. You want to get coffee?
right, man.
Oh, right.
Yeah.